Testing. Okay. So you wore purple so you could be seen. Not
Testing. Testing.
Testing. Testing. Yeah.
Whether the weather be weather.
We can hear you.
Ooh. The mic's on, yeah. Ready to do the thing? Yeah. Hungry.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Beth Effect, which is a Google Hangout in honor of Beth Cantor. Here's Beth. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Kathy Rich, and I'm the Director of Organizational Effectiveness Grantmaking at the David and Lucille Packard Foundation. We're hosting today from the Foundation's Live Oak Room, and Beth's been a visiting scholar here at the Foundation for the past 4 years. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping details. Because we've got a lot of folks joining the Hangout, we've muted participants, and we'll be taking questions today from Twitter. So ask away. The hashtag is the Beth Effect, all one word. Feel free to tweet not just questions, but reflections, your heartfelt appreciation, any requests you have for what Beth should be doing in the future. And if you have more to say than 140 characters will hold, you can also share your stories, your experiences, your thoughts and good wishes during and after this event in the comments section on Beth's blog at bethcantor.org. We'll be taking over the blog tomorrow with your tweets and a link to today's Hangout and a few other special surprises as well. And now I'm really pleased to introduce today's guest of honor, Beth Cantor. So 5 years ago, the Packard Foundation was trying to figure out this whole social media thing. The whole idea of using social media for social impact was still pretty new, though it was certainly playing a big role in a big presidential election at the time. We sensed that we needed to figure out the role that technology and social media could play in the social sector, and that we needed to help our nonprofit partners figure it out too. But we didn't even know how to begin. Luckily, a couple of visionary colleagues of mine here, Stephanie McAuliffe, who we're so blessed to have with us today, and Chris DeCardi, had the great good luck to connect with Beth Cantor. And an online conversation led to a phone call, and in March 2009, Beth arrived here for what we thought was going to be a 9-month visiting scholarship. When Beth came to the Packard Foundation, she was already a national leader in how nonprofits can use technology and social media to advance their mission. 9 months turned into 4 years, and now Beth's a legend. She's advised literally hundreds of Packard Foundation-funded organizations here and around the world on social media strategy. She's written 2 books. There's The Network Nonprofit, and there's Measuring the Network Nonprofit. And she's taught me and countless other people how to do the failure bow. And my colleagues told me I should do one right now, but I'm not going to. Today is a time for all of us in the nonprofit sector to reflect on what Beth means to us, to appreciate what we've learned from her and with her, as our teacher, as our mentor, as our friend. And today she's going to share some stories and some laughs and some aha moments, and maybe even a failure bow or 2. And she's going to give us a preview of where her own growing edges are, where she's eager to take her work next. John Kenyon's going to be interviewing Beth today, and I'm so pleased to welcome him to the foundation. John is a technology educator and strategist. He's worked with nonprofits for more than 20 years, providing advice, teaching seminars, and writing articles. He's a frequent collaborator of Beth, and there's no one better to do this interview and to do perhaps just a little bit of gentle teasing along the way. And also with us today are 3 nonprofit sector leaders: Luis Chabola from the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County, Jennifer Morgan of the Stanford Social Innovation Review, and Rachel Weidinger from Upwell, who have worked with Beth during her visiting scholarship and have a few stories of their own to share. John's going to kick things off with a few questions, and then Luis, Jennifer, and Rachel will speak, and then John will moderate questions and comments from folks around the world via Twitter. So John, it's all yours. Take it away.
Excellent, Kathy. Thank you. Oh, you're going to keep that. Hey! I'm going to make you stand up.
You can make me stand up.
I'm going to make you stand up. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's really a pleasure to be here and to kind of celebrate Beth and all the work that she's done both with Packard and the Nonprofit Technology Foundation. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Beth since 2004. I remember clearly, and I just recently did a blog post about it, how at the Nonprofit Technology Conference in Philadelphia in 2004 was one of the first times that I'd seen her teach. And so the next Nonprofit Technology Conference in 2014 will be our 10th anniversary, so that'll be really nice. And it wasn't long after that that was around the time where if you Googled just Beth, up came Beth Cantor. Because she was one of the first people to blog.
Before Kiss Beth.
Before Kiss Beth, that's right. And so, yeah, that was really a good thing. So, and I also, in my research, realized that our paths almost crossed actually in 1984 when I did some work for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, which I know you worked for too.
10 years before that.
Oh, and 10 years before that. Okay. And because were you in Western Massachusetts in Tanglewood, or were you in Boston?
In Boston and Tanglewood.
Oh,
yeah,
in
both.
Oh, really great. Yeah, because I was at college in Boston at the time, and I worked at the concert hall, so I noticed that. So you've been working with nonprofits for 33 years, so I just thought I'd start with, before you came to Packard, you had been an independent consultant for quite a while.
Since 1984,
Oh.
because I discovered early on I was a project junkie, and I had this insatiable desire to learn things, and I felt that didn't fit working with an organization. And so, but before I got to that, I had graduated from music school.
All right.
And then decided that I wanted to manage the Boston Symphony. I think I was 21 or something like that.
Okay.
And so I knocked on the door and I asked, how do I become the manager of the Boston Symphony? And the general manager told me, you better learn how to type, honey.
Oh.
So I took my metronome and I started at Adagio, learning typing lessons up to I could type 150 words per minute. And I got my first job at the Boston Symphony in the development office, and did every single job in the development office, then every single job in communications, and then the box office, and then went back and knocked on the door saying, I'm ready to manage the Boston Symphony. And they said, well, manage a smaller organization. So I did the Pro Arte Chamber Orchestra. And then And I grew them from one-person staff to 10, and we did a benefit with Garrison Keillor in the basement of Filene's that was broadcast nationally. And then after that, I started consulting with small arts nonprofits until I'd worked with every single one in the state. Almost.
Wow, yeah.
That's an exaggeration. Almost everyone in the state.
Okay.
But anything from bookkeeping to marketing, fundraising, and then I worked with the National Endowment as an evaluator. And then I discovered the internet back around 92.
Oh, okay.
I didn't invent it.
You're not taking credit for that.
No,
Oh.
no. But then that started on the path of learning about technology and teaching it.
Excellent. And so, and you wrote on your blog about, how exciting it was to come to Packard. Did you also find, even though you'd done this for a long time, because from I think you said, was it 92, up until 4 years ago, you were pretty focused on doing the various consulting and working with nonprofits around technology and social media. So, like I said, you said it was quite exciting, but was there anything you found kind of daunting about it? I know some people it can be daunting to think of foundations, as a different culture.
Well, two things I'll say about that. Being an independent consultant, I always worked out of my home. I had a home office, so I had to learn how to get up in the morning and get showered and dressed and come in to an office and act like a grown-up. So that was a little bit difficult. And the first couple months I was commuting from Boston, so I was living in a garage apartment of a professor down near Stanford. And I was riding Stephanie's bike. Stephanie McAuliffe lent me her bike, and I was riding 5 miles a day. And I remember on my first day, I took out my phone and I tweeted, I saw a red hawk riding my bike. And I used a hashtag for National Wildlife Federation, which is spotting wildlife, and they said, "Oh, is the hawk riding the bike?" But the wonderful thing about coming here, I think it's one of my most memorable experiences, and it's more general, is the culture here is very curious, it's very reflective, and if I'd sum it up in one word, I'm going to sum it up in Italian and say curiosità, or curiosity, which is this unrelenting quest for continuous learning. And that was like really joyous because it's something that I've always had, but to be immersed in a culture where that was kind of the norm, and to always be kind of asking questions and learning was pretty exciting.
Excellent. All right, great. So then I think I told you I was going to ask you kind of about 3 kind of mosts. So like most memorable moment, most gratifying, biggest fail. So well, maybe let's start with the first one. Is there a most memorable moment for you in your 4 years working with Packard?
So I had 2.
Great.
So the first one, this was back in 2009, in December of 2009. It was time for me to do a presentation to the Packard board. And so I was pretty nervous, and there was a lot of preparation involved. We were rehearsed, we prepped, we revised, we prepped, we rehearsed, and so which was great because it was really, I had never done that level of prep, so it was really, really useful for me, and I learned a lot from that. And then there was this idea of, well, why don't we live tweet the board meeting? And you have to remember, this is 2009. This is when people were saying, you'd say Twitter, and people would go, what? And you'd say, well, you're talking 140 characters. Oh, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Or people would say, oh, yeah, I heard of that. That's where people talk about what their cat ate for breakfast. So I thought it was pretty bold to say, okay, we're going to do this experiment on Twitter during the board meeting. We're going to live tweet and ask for feedback. So I was like really nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen, but there was this spontaneity and quest for learning that took us into that, and nothing bad happened. But I can say also there were a lot of people writing back on Twitter saying thank you for a window into the board meeting at Packard. And I think one of the board members' college roommates from Yale tweeted back and said hello. The other memorable moment happened to have been back in January of 2011, and this was when I was beginning to be obsessed about measurement and feeling, okay, that's the next thing. People need to learn how to measure their networks, measure their social media, and be effective. And I kept on running across either people thinking it's too much work or afraid of it or just not knowing how. And so I was invited to do a program forum. Every so often, the scholars have to come and do presentations. And I had just gotten back from doing a lot of work with the State Department, at basically redoing the network nonprofit into the network NGO and teaching trainers and other nonprofit leaders how to deliver these trainings about being networked. And so they were very interested in finding out, what works and what doesn't work when it comes to doing capacity building outside of the U.S. And what do you think is the most compelling need? So I had this great opportunity to I always felt safe in saying, okay, well, I tried this and it didn't work, but here's what I learned.
Nice.
Or I tried this and it worked beautifully, and here's the next step to scaling it. But it also happened to have been my birthday.
Oh.
And afterwards, I got a cake with a round of happy birthday,
Oh.
which I thought was just really great.
Really nice. Oh, that's really memorable. Good. Excellent. And so, how about kind of did you have one that was your biggest learning experience? I know you talked about, having a biggest fail or.
Go to the fail right now.
Okay. We can go to gratifying if you want to.
Okay, well, let's do gratifying first.
Great.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Okay, so what's been really gratifying is to work with the peer learning exchanges. And I was like a kid in the candy store because I had unlimited opportunity to iterate on this model. I had started off doing coaching, one-on-one coaching, and I found that I was repeating myself. And then I found myself telling another grantee's story to that grantee, and I felt, well, this isn't very authentic. So then I would arrange for double coaching,
Okay.
and then I said there has to be a better way. On the other side, I was doing a lot of these one-day workshops, and I would say, well, are people inspired to go and implement? It just seems like the learning's just beginning and the workshop ended. So I said, why don't we marry these two? So I got to do some for the Pakistan and India grantees, which was fabulous. And so this was taking the networked NGO curriculum, going in country or near it, in the case of Pakistan, and doing an intensive 4-day face-to-face workshop, followed by action learning projects and facilitation done through webinars, conference calls, and on Facebook. And that was really gratifying because watching people actually implement and share their experience has always been amazing. And the same thing for the network nonprofit peer group. The first year I did this very ambitious thing that if I thought about it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I actually pulled together the peer group, and I used them as almost a focus group to develop and refine the chapters in the book. So, because I was really wanted to make sure, are you going to actually do this process? Is this too much work? Is this too hard? Is this clear? Is it fun? Are you learning something? And so that was the first year, and that was really gratifying to see people come up and step up to the challenge and actually be in charge of their own learning. So I sort of became this learning concierge in a way. So we're making it okay for people to learn and transfer their learning. So that was really gratifying. And then the second year that I did it, I decided to eat my own dog food because I think teachers should learn along with their students. We should be on equal footing. So I said, okay, I spent this 2 years writing a book on measurement. I should figure out how to measure my capacity building work.
Okay.
I'm talking about transformative capacity building. Well, how do I measure that? And so I became a little bit obsessed with learning analytics and this kind of measure as you go across some benchmarks, doing before and after. And so I was able to learn, where to target one-on-one interactions. Where were people? I was also really obsessed with the dropout rate.
Oh, yeah.
So, you start this program and people have good intentions, but, they drop out or they wouldn't do the work. And it gave me this enormous opportunity to really learn how to tweak the curriculum or the facilitation or vetting. So that work has been incredibly gratifying. You asked about some fails. I should say failure bell.
Failure bell.
Okay, so I don't think I would ever tell this story publicly, but so you're hearing it here for the first time.
You're
so
a brave
it's very
lady.
Embarrassing. Okay, so this was it happened with the Pakistan grantees. That's right, my grant's finished. The report is submitted. I actually wrote about this in the report. So I had just finished the in-country workshops. Everyone was thrilled, excited. We had 2 tracks of phone calls and webinars. We were doing one for the senior leaders and one for the doers. And so it was, and so they had just picked their action learning projects, and we we're having our first meeting, on the webinar. And I was super excited. And of course, I had done a participant questionnaire. Have you ever participated in a conference call? I had done my due diligence with the platform. There was a particular platform. I quizzed them, will this work with phone lines from Pakistan? If people call in with their mobile phones, will it work? And they assured me it would. So I went to the first call, and people, nobody logged on at the appointed time. And I'm like, oh my God, did I mess up the time zone? No, I'm okay. I'd scheduled these for 10 o'clock at night, so it would hit their office hours in the next morning. But I didn't mess that up. But then people started coming in, and then I would hear you'd hear the bing, and there'd be, hello, can you hear me? And then, no, I can't hear you, and a lot of shouting, a lot of confusion, a lot of over-talking, and basically complete platform fail. And of course, the one person who could hear us was the program officer, the staff person from Packard, who was in Pakistan. So it's like, oh my God. And so I felt humiliated. I feel your face kind of get all hot and stuff. And I was like, and then I just said, okay, I called her up on Skype, and I said, this was a complete failure. It's going to be fixed. Okay, so what didn't work here? We're dropping the webinar. Okay, and we're just going back to the conference call. People were able to get onto Facebook and use the chat, so we had a fallback in case there were rolling blackouts. And then the other fail, wasn't actually a fail, was, well, there's a cultural difference here in the way that people in Pakistan conduct conference calls and the way that we're doing it here in the US, so we need to talk about that and debrief and find a middle ground. And so from that, the next group that I was working with was in India with their grantees. So I actually did a session at our face-to-face on how to do conference calls. I sent them off in the hotel with their mobile phones.
Great.
I had them call into the line and do a mock conference call, and then we debriefed it, and then we talked about process, and then I knew it worked. So it all turned out into something that I learned about using the technology to facilitate learning.
Wow. Yeah, that's some good advice in there about always having, a backup for your technology, or some other way, like you had the chat to back up on Facebook, so that you weren't just relying on a tool.
Well, when you're working in a country that has rolling blackouts and the electricity can go out, you need something.
Right. Yeah. Well, very good. Excellent. And how about any like aha moments? You gave the example of kind of vetting some of, as you were kind of writing the book, kind of vetting some of that with the groups. Was there anything where you're like, oh yeah, I'm off the track, or oh, that makes good sense, I'm going to include that as well? Anything like that?
Well, a couple of aha moments when I started to actually measure my work along the way. I could actually interact with people and find out, well, did they all say it was great at the webinar and then just like put it away? But to find out what were the actual barriers to actually putting it in practice. And so that was really enormously helpful. Is there something going on organizationally? Is it the person hasn't made the time for it? Is it that they actually need actually need that one-on-one coaching to figure out how to apply it? So that actually generated so many ahas. I had to write a blog post for I think the Communications Network, and it was called Lessons Learned About Designing Transformative Capacity Building. So a lot of lessons about vetting, measuring along the way, using learning analytics, even just like who do you invite to participate from the organization so that they're inspired to actually act and use this information.
That makes good sense. Well, and that makes me think of, I know a lot of clients, in my own work and in work we've discussed, they really need to kind of pace their progress so they don't get overwhelmed. I think at the recent training, Kathy was even saying that, at Packard, we needed to go at a pace that was comfortable for us, to get more used to social media and things like that. But I also know that you often work in cohorts of folks, because you were talking about, in these coaching calls, I'm repeating myself or I'm telling stories on. So because you've got these different organizations that need to go at different paces, but you're doing them in a cohort, Is it just trying to give them various levels of, things that they might try that's going to meet them where they are? Um, how do you kind of address that when you're dealing with organizations that are in multiple places but are in a cohort?
Um, well, I think that you become that's more the norm where you have organizations in different places. I think I was saying the other day, ever since I've been doing training for the last 20 years, whenever I've done a workshop, I was saying this in a blog post, you never have the same level of experience in the room. Even if you say this is for novice beginners, you have somebody, that is just, has a lot of experiences there to validate their knowledge. So you have to become a master in differentiated facilitation and instruction. And that means that you have to get off the stage and be the expert. That you have to be more concerned about where people are and pulling together the clusters and likenesses and have them being able to work independently.
Yeah, because I mean that's what I love about some of the things that either we've done together that I've learned from you, or that I've tried as well, about having people get into small groups or the share pairs or things like that. Where I remember in a recent master class that it ended up that somebody was very knowledgeable was together with somebody who wasn't, and so they were able to share their knowledge, and it also gave that advanced person understanding of, oh, okay, this is where some of the other folks are, so I should be maybe a little more patient. So, oh, excellent. Let's see. And I guess the other thing I was going to ask you about was just in terms of funders, because like I said, some people have suggestions, or their preconceived notions about that. So, um, uh, you know, what did you observe at Packard that made them, really seem like real people?
Cake.
Ooh.
Okay. What? No. Well, seriously, actually, when this building opened, there was the most amazing cake. It was in the replica of the building, and it was carrot cake, chocolate cake, and I think angel food cake. And the roof was no, but cake, and
Awesome.
also the fact that early on, I won't mention any names. I remember it was somebody's birthday, and they gave a huge party for that person with a cake, but the staff got up and sang this wonderful tribute to the tune of Greasy, Grimy Gopher Guts.
Oh, excellent.
So funders are people too.
That's right. All right, so now it's time for us to move on to our special guests. As Kathy mentioned, we have 3 special guests, and I think we're going to start with Luis from the Community Foundation of Santa Cruz County. So, Luis, I know you've got some stories and experience to share about your time in the Beth effect and how it's affected you.
Yeah, thanks. And I want to really thank the Packard Foundation for having the vision or the guts to be bold and to bring Beth to the Packard Foundation, because that's what allowed her to work with us. And so Beth, I don't know if you remember when you first started working with us at the Community Foundation. We were sort of dabbling in Facebook and some other things, but not doing anything really very well. And I know this isn't true for any of you at your nonprofits, but we were sort of locked into process, kind of for process sake. And what you really did was move us from process to go find something and do it. And that was really a kind of a turning point for us. And the 2 things that I really wanted to share was not only how you helped us, but how you helped us help other nonprofits. And I've got a couple little visuals here. Because of that peer learning group, Idealware found out what we were up to, and they wrote this great little book on supporting nonprofit technology, where they used the peer learning group that you helped us start as a case study of how we were able to, with almost no money except a little lunch money, recruit some other nonprofits to learn on Monday what you were teaching us and share it on Thursday with other nonprofits. And you sat in on some of the calls with us, and that was just really great, because you didn't have the time and all the work that you were doing to work with them, but through us, you were able to share the learning with them. So that was great. And the other thing is we learned to love measuring. We created a blog dashboard as part of our Action Learning project, which our web designer Embolden recently shared at the CAME network at the Council of Foundations. And it was all because of you. So I don't think we would be here in the same place if you hadn't been able to help us. Plus, your open, fun spirit has been really great.
That's great, thank you. And I have to say that dashboard, we should share that because that is one of the best dashboards I've seen because they injected humor in it and engagement. And it's, I mean, you know, if the numbers go up, everybody has a smiley face, but maybe something goes down. And rather than hiding in shame, there's like a little note that pops up and it goes, oops, what did we do? What happened here? How can we fix it?
Yeah, the numbers go down more than we'd like to see. And the last thing is the clout that you have and that everybody knows about. Sort of like when you're kids and you go, if you go, you know, whatever parent you're talking to, you say the other one says to do this, and all of a sudden the other parent listens. So even within our own foundation, we go, Beth said we should be doing this, and because they may have not worked with you directly, but they know the expertise you bring, everybody goes, oh, okay, well maybe we should do that.
That's great, thank you. Thank you.
Good job, Elise.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Morgan. I'm from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, and I've worked with Beth in a number of capacities, and I'm just really honored to be here, and thank you to the Packard Foundation as well. Beth has had a huge effect on our work and kind of the types of things we've been able to share with our audience. She was a speaker at our Nonprofit Management Institute this year, and she's contributed a number of really great articles on measurement to our online space. And I guess one of the things that I love about Beth contributing online is that yes, her posts are intelligent and really valuable, but you know, on our homepage we feature photos of all of our contributors, and you have a lot of people very coiffed in studio shots, wearing their pearls and leaning in. And when Beth contributes, we get this amazing photo front and center on the homepage in her, you know, colorful floral shirt and cowboy hat, and it makes us look a lot more fun than we perhaps are. So thank you for that. Of course, you know, I've mostly worked with Beth as a student. I participated in 2 of the peer learning groups that she kind of organized, and these learning groups are, you know, you kind of have this like group of nonprofits and organizations that have unlimited tools and no time and no cash, no idea where to begin. And I think kind of the structure of the program is so valuable to all of us because one, it really made each lesson really bite-sized, and you didn't feel like burdened to go home and study before you could come back and have a conversation. But probably the most important part about it was that there were real strategic measurement projects that each person was encouraged to do. So at the end of it, we actually had experience, not just theory, and we had something really tangible that we could bring back to our organizations. That was fantastic. And, you know, beyond the structure of the program, you know, I have to say the thing that I find most valuable about Beth, or one of her best qualities as a collaborator and a teacher, is her incredible generosity. She's, you know, not just smart and authentic and intrepid and all those things that are really hard to find in any person, but she just, you know, she's consistently generous with her time and her intelligence and everything. And she agreed at the end of the project to have one-on-one meetings with every single person in the group, which, if you can imagine, 20 mini, yeah, 50 mini strategic meetings, how much energy that must take, you know, how much preparation and how much listening is involved in that. And, you know, I've heard from many colleagues, you know, how they'll email Beth for recommendations on resources or speakers, and she gets back quickly and also very thoughtfully, you know. And then, you know, there's all of the gazillion fans on social media, and if you think about how every single day she's, you know, offering them, helping them find tools and really make meaning of their work, it's pretty incredible, especially since that work in most cases is, helping the world be a better place. So in that way, it's doubly generous. So thank you, Beth, and I hope that you continue teaching.
Great, thank you. And I just want to say before you go away, is that I really appreciated. I know I made them all do action learning projects. So it's not you're not just gonna. I'm not just gonna feed you content and you're gonna sit back, but you're gonna actually go out and try to apply this. And I know that we had some to spend the time on the phone and the thinking through, and to have the patience to do that, and not like immediately want to just give me the tips. But to you really sit and say, well, oh, okay, so maybe we could try it like this, and then okay, so consult with other people on staff, have this meeting, here's, a planned agenda, and come back and, think about that. But to really have the discipline and the curiosity to do that, to me, it makes it all the more rewarding and want to be all the more generous. So thank you.
All right, over to Rachel.
Thanks. When I think of you, Beth, there's this one image that is permanently burned into my mind that I have seen in at least, let's say, 30 PowerPoint presentations you've done since maybe 2008 or 2007. And it's this little girl, and she has a paper band around her head and these huge cutout ears. And on her forehead it says, "My listening ears." And she has, I just looked at the picture again because in my mind, it's about that slide, and that concept is so strong for me because this little girl has this kind of sheepish expression, and it's humble and a little embarrassed, and that really, I don't know how much intention you chose that image with, but the idea of listening as a human being with humility from inside the silo of an organization to the communities that you work with is so powerful to me. And I always snap back when I'm thinking about listening in social media and listening to our communities to that image, which has been this kind of giggly touchstone in my life. So thank you for sharing my listening ears image with the nonprofit sector. And I always think about metrics when I think about you. It was really cool to participate in the Measuring the Network nonprofit peer learning group with Upwell and the rest of the grantees. Was that last year? It seems like last week. That was really hard and awesome to try and understand metrics for working in a networked way together. And I've also taken away from many interactions with you and lots of just reading what you've written that our metrics don't own us, that we have the opportunity to create metrics and to really define our work in ways that make meaning for us and are directly related and grounded in the communities we serve and the change that we're trying to create, and that we should not just accept the kind of metrics that are already out there, but we should do the hard work of forging metrics together. And that's been really powerful for me. And then thank you so much for writing those books. They're so handy. I sometimes get in conversations with people and they're like moving in a direction, and I can give, I have a stack of those books. I can give them the network nonprofit, and then they always call me back or tweet me back with this like, oh, I'm not alone. And those books have done so much to define a way of working and a way of thinking and a community of practitioners. And it's so handy to not have to try and do all of that, explain all of that from scratch over and over. Those are really handy. So thank you for all of the work that you've done in our communities, and the giant influence you've had on me personally with the huge ears and the idea that we make our own metrics, we can make our own metrics to fit our work, and this huge shared practice that it's all connected. and we have the opportunity to work in a really big network.
That's great. And I want to thank you actually, because this is what's so great about having fabulous grantees together and learning from each other, is that the facilitator never gets bored. You know, because I'm always learning. And I remember you presenting some of your ideas around taking lean startup concepts and applying those to campaigns and working in a networked way, and then even going forward and then writing guest posts on my blog, so you could so that the learning that was happening within the 30 or 40 grantees on the calls, it just didn't stay on the call, it got out further. And you have really influenced and taken my thinking around big listening a lot further, and just wonderful, wonderful stories about the work that you're doing on ocean conservation and how you're using networks and social media. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
Excellent. Really good job. I want to thank the three of you for coming and sharing. That was really great to hear those kind of concrete examples about kind of the ripples from the Beth effect. So now is the time when we said we're going to move to some of the crowdsourced questions. We've asked people through Twitter and through the Beth Effect hashtag to send in some questions, and I've got a couple of my own, but I also have collected some of them. So I'm going to start with one that I've heard from other folks and that I sort of had. So there's a perception that some of the organizations where you've worked internationally, like India and the Middle East, may not be as advanced as, you know, U.S. or kind of first world organizations in terms of the effective use of social media. So having been there and having worked with those folks, do you find that that is true, or is that really kind of a false perception, and that there's, you know, a range everywhere?
Well, I think a couple of things. There's a range everywhere. Okay, so it depends on who you're working with, and also, like here in the U.S., there are what we called in the first book networked nonprofits, which are agile, transparent organizations that have embraced the use of these tools, and then there are NGO institutions that are in the process of change. So I've seen that in every country I've worked in. What was different, though, and what I see it as a difference, especially in India and in Pakistan, I do a lot of exercises around having people think about their networks, and we do a network visualization exercise. That's something that we did in one of the deep dives. And in India and Pakistan, they immediately got it. They were putting their sticky notes together, or drawing their networks, and saying, oh, we have networks on the ground. We just need to connect them, online and to Twitter. I was just in the Midwest doing the workshop. Brought the network exercise, and I have to explain it again and again, and then, oh, okay. So they're, less used to working in networks. It's not as natural.
Great. Yeah, because I know, and when you were talking about the agile, transparent, I've also, in my experience helping organizations with social media, have seen all sorts of organizations from all over the place and all sizes also be the fortresses, not very transparent.
Oh, yes, agile. That exists too.
Yes, all over the place. So, great. Let's see. And I thought Beth and I were fortunate enough to be in Australia earlier this year, where we both taught master classes and both did keynotes. And one of the attendees there, I don't know if you remember Paul Reese, but he tweeted that in March 2008, I joined Twitter and I have no idea what the hell is this. I needed the Beth effect to learn how to use it, and I haven't looked back. I thought that was quite nice.
From 2008.
Yeah.
So from the first time I keynoted Connecting Up, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. All right, good. So let's get to some of these other questions, though. In fact, one that I saw that Kathy tweeted, are you going to write another book? And if so, what about?
Oh, well, after I finished the last book, I said, I swear I'm never writing another book. But of course, that was, a year ago. But I don't know if that's a yes. Yes, I will write another book. I'm not sure exactly what form that'll take, or how, whether it'll be another, physical book or whatever. But the topic, this whole idea of to be on a quest of continuous learning, I think learning is the next best thing. And the idea that networks and these tools are out there, and they've, as Clay Shirky says, boring. We no longer have to explain Twitter, and people no longer say, huh. It's there. It's part of what we use. But how do we use them to connect with our peers, to connect with other people, or even to create our own way to self-learn from our networks? So I'm really interested in this whole big concept of connected learning, and I'm starting to see instances of that in the nonprofit sector. Just this morning, I saw Giving Tuesday has launched their Giving Tuesday University, where they're sharing best practices. So on one end, you can have self-generated learning, self-directed learning, self-organized peer learning, which would be great, because wouldn't it be great if a group of nonprofit people go off and learn together and master a skill without just on their own? And then all along that continuum to more directed learning and how you learn with a network. I don't know exactly where it's going, but I'm obsessed again. So look out.
So that's kind of your prediction for the future of the network nonprofit is moving more into that area.
Networked learning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Let's see. And Stephanie asked, and this might be somewhat similar, but there may be some twists about what does nonprofit technology look like in 5 years? Which seems broader than just the social media piece.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we've talked about this a lot in many instances like this. So we see, mobile coming on. It's here, and it needs to be adopted and used not only as part of the communication strategy, but it could also be a mobile learning strategy. It could be mobile program delivery. And I think there's a lot more work that nonprofits need to do to adopt it. There's some early adopters. There's some great examples. I see Marnie Webb sitting here, who's working on a mobile app called Safe Night that's helping domestic violence victims, crowdsource and find hotel rooms.
That's right.
So more and more like that. I think also this whole connection between data that's there and hardware that's in the field that's transmitting. I know this sounds like science fiction. That's transmitting data to a source where we can analyze it and make sense of it. And I'm thinking about the work that Charity Water's doing, where we're actually putting sensors on their wells to figure if they're working or not and what needs maintenance. Along the learning idea of a couple of things that are hot are learning analytics and massively open courses. That's an area. And then, of course, wearable technology. This is just the beginning. Google Glass and these things, these Fitbits. This sort of fits with personal analytics, but also, wearable technology that is generating some data that's helping us do a job better or helping us find something about ourselves, but also doing that socially. So I think while we might start to think, social media is normalized, rest in peace, social media job. Somebody wrote up a piece yesterday, the social media manager job is dead, rest in peace. Okay, well, maybe. But I think that what's really cutting edge are the confluence of these different technologies that are coming and how nonprofits can begin to adapt them with small pilots and learning about it. Because we know we move much more slower than the technology.
That's right, yeah. Well, and it sounded like you touched on a couple things that, like you say, have been kind of hot topics around, big data and the Internet of Things.
Big data, I heard medium data and little data. Little data was the book. Little data is organizations' data. Big data is all this massive data out there that we're making sense of. And then medium data are places like GuideStar and the Foundation Center that have data that are making it packageable for organizations to use.
Oh, excellent.
So it's a bridge between little data, which is internal data, and big data that's out there. But the most important thing is to be informed by it, not driven.
Yeah. And to make it useful, like you say, like with the Foundation Center, and they're talking about, all the data they collected and synthesizing it in a meaningful way, and not just, here's a whole lot of data.
Exactly.
Oh, good. Excellent. Let's see. Alex Foster tweeted, how will the role of charismatic leaders in social movements change in the next 10 years?
I thought that was such a great question. I actually saw that this morning, and so I got a chance to think about it. I think a lot of it is with the networked mindset that I've written about, that I know at Packard has thought about a lot, and a lot of the ideas that are in the first book, The Network Nonprofit. But taking that further, I think, and I'm going to steal something from Rachel. She talks about this, and I'm going to mispronounce it. The Girdo? Is that Griot, which is, that movements to be successful, the leaders have to be able to learn and document their learning and make it shareable with others. So it comes back to this learning. So I think leaders need to be able to share and document their learning and inspire people in their movement to do the same.
Excellent. Let's see. Someone asked, what are you learning about right now? I think you kind of mentioned it, which was kind of about kind of the continuous learning and teaching and kind of the differentiated approaches.
What am I learning about learning right now?
No, sorry. I inserted the about learning.
Okay.
Bad interviewer. What are you learning now? What are you learning about now?
What am I learning? Well, the human-centered design processes and how you can integrate those into training, but also into how nonprofits can use that to be more innovative with their strategies related to digital strategies. So that was a recent obsession.
Excellent. Yeah, you have a good blog post on there, so I'd suggest that folks check that out because that was really, really interesting. Let me see. How are you able to navigate people so effectively? Do you have clones?
No, I wish I did.
If only.
Well, when I was younger, I had a photographic memory, so I could remember everything, but that has since dissipated. So I use this approach of I don't have to memorize or know everything. I just have to remember one thing on where to find them. So I have a very idiosyncratic contact directory. So I can usually remember one fact or something, or one tag or something around that person.
It's like a hook.
That's a hook that leads me. It's like a network map. So I use a lot of network maps. I use LinkedIn network map a lot, especially when people say, oh, I need someone to help me with X. Do you know someone? And I can immediately pluck them out because I'm constantly looking at that. So the intersection between people, what they know, and where two people could, close a triangle, as we say.
Where do you get your training ideas?
That's a great question. This is another thing I probably shouldn't say out loud or admit, but I will. Not that many people, right? Well, I do. I think I do a lot of reading. I observe other people, but I also, when I'm training, I do a lot of improvisation. Ideas come while I'm doing it because I see where somebody is struggling to grasp a concept, and an idea comes as a way to teach it, and I just do it. And that's why when I'm always working, when I'm working at the State Department and abroad in Pakistan and India, and I did have a co-trainer, Stephanie Rudette, who was wonderful, but part of her job was to photograph and document so I can remember what I did. So usually I would improvise something, it would be captured, documented, and then I go back and I actually have written out lesson plans, and I have a whole section about what did I learn, what did I do, I document that, and then I take the photos and I put together a PowerPoint of the whole process, and in the notes are the reflections. So then I have that, then when I need to get ideas for training, I go to this repertoire, and I'm constantly replenishing that. And it's not only for myself, I do that when I observe somebody.
Great, so you collect in that way as well.
Yeah, and I actually got that out of a fail.
Oh.
When it was another Packard project
Okay.
where I was teaching in Rwanda. It was women's leadership curriculum development. We were meeting in Rwanda in the middle of nowhere, and they assured me that the wireless Wi-Fi modems would work, and they did, except for until the internet cable got cut, and then the laptops didn't work. So I had a day where I didn't have access to the internet. And I was supposed to be documenting online what was going on. So I just improvised with PowerPoint and the camera, so I documented the whole process, and I said, I should be doing that for myself, and anytime I go and observe, because it's another form of listening.
And that's great advice for anybody who does trainings or is an educator, I think, because that way, like you say, you see and you remember and you can synthesize and see, oh, what worked, and let me try a different angle on this. Excellent. Let's see. Well, we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, and I know I had promised folks that I was going to give you the litany of questions from the Actors Studio, and that also we wanted to hear about kind of what's next for Beth. So I'll start with the Actors Studio's question. So this was the questionnaire, of course, not invented by me or Bernard Pivot, as it turns out, but that is often used by James Lipton on the Actors Studio. So Beth, what's your favorite word?
Learning.
Excellent. What is your least favorite word?
I couldn't think of a least favorite word. I left it blank.
Oh.
I don't have. I looked at your. I watched Meryl Streep answer all those questions.
Great.
You know, I was tempted to say coconut milk or whatever it was.
A fellow
but
Jersey girl.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with a.
Oh, good.
You know, a least favorite word. Words I can't pronounce correctly.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to say any of them because
like the
I'll
one
mispronounce
Rachel
them.
just gave
Yes,
you.
yes.
Okay, there you go. What turns you on, inspires you, excites you?
Finding insight and just being creative and finding something new, emerging out of something you've always done. But just again, it's getting back to that learning piece.
Yeah. Nice. What turns you off?
Working with people you don't trust.
That can break things down.
Yeah, well, I've gotten to the point where I think I'm too old now that I only want to work with people that I absolutely love working with, that I'm learning from someone, and that there is an exchange of learning. And that you have to trust each other to reach that.
Truly. Yeah. Yeah, because once that's broken, then it's much harder to continue. Yes, I agree. What noise or sound do you love?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a noise, but I would say Lang Lang playing Chopin.
Oh, nice. That's a beautiful sound. What noise or sound do you hate?
The sound of a pencil on a page, but I love this, and the sound of magic markers sometimes squeaking, but I love magic markers and pencils. I love how magic markers smell.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I'm gonna deviate then because there was a question that I was gonna wait for, but somebody did ask, do you dream about awesome pens?
Yes, I do. I'm embarrassed to say that I own 300 markers.
Awesome. All right,
you should ask me my favorite marker color.
Oh, what is your favorite?
Pistachio.
Pistachio. Delicious and beautiful. What's your favorite curse word?
That I'm not going to say. But and it was inspired by Rachel. I should make Rachel say it, but I won't. But there's some Tumblr blogs. Everyone's familiar with Tumblr.
Oh yeah.
And there's a community of Tumblr blogs where people are so passionate and excited about a topic, and they start with F yes, whatever the topic is. So I started one, F yes, nonprofit spreadsheets. Awesome. And there's one called F yes sharks.
Oh, great. So Google F yes sharks and F yes spreadsheets.
F yeah.
F yeah. Awesome. Great. What profession would you like to attempt?
Well, I'm actually going to attempt it soon. I'm going to be a professor. It's very part-time, adjunct professor. So I'm going to try some teaching in higher education.
Oh, excellent.
Just, it's very part-time, just a way to, because I'm interested in the whole flipped classroom model, peer instruction model. So I wanted to put that to the test in a different kind of channel, if you will.
No, I think you'll love it, and I think you'll be great at it. Now, what profession would you not like to participate in?
Something that making fences.
Oh, okay.
Because they make for good neighbors, but they can close you off. And my one bad experience with my husband was we built a fence together.
Oh.
And he's very precision oriented, and he wanted to measure the posts. And I thought we should just do it. And it was not a fun experience. So I don't want to build any fences or silos.
That's good. I bet your husband agrees. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. So now we wanted to turn to what's next for you. What's what are your plans, your passions, your hopes?
Oh, that's such a great question. People have asked me, when you ask me, how did you get into where you got now? Well, it was this kind of great mix between serendipity and being strategic. So I've always like taken a pause. It seems like every 5 years I kind of reinvent myself, or there's another iteration of something, and I don't always know what it is, but it appears, and it's like I have to go build a tower out of mashed potatoes, Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes. I have to go do this. You know, the Close Encounters. So the mashed potato version of the Devil's Tower that's starting to appear has to do with this quest for continuous learning, and what are the methods for that, and how can that be something that nonprofits can use, adapt to get to better impact, whether it's self-directed learning on staff or whether it's groups of people coming together as in networks or it's happening inside of organizations. So I'm really passionate about teaching and learning and documenting and sharing that learning. So I want to explore that, and I want to, if I'm going to write something, it's going to be a practical something or other, a very practical checklist, cookbook, whatever that is, so organizations can effectively use this technology to accomplish this kind of continuous learning. So I'm going to be putting adjunct professor to my title sometime in 2014. Not a full-time commitment. I'm continuing with a lot of the teaching and training I'm doing in other countries over the next year. So we'll see where it goes. I'm blogging.
Right.
You know, blogging is also a great learning tool. So.
And it sounds like from what you said, as you go along that path, you'll also be measuring it.
Oh, of course.
The things.
Although Louise seems to think I'm going to write a tell-all book called I Never Measured Anything. But, you know, I'm looking, it took me exactly 5,024 steps to walk here today.
Oh, excellent.
So I measured that and I burned, I don't know, 700 calories.
Excellent.
So now I'm measuring everything.
And somebody asked, how can the amazing community of people that you have cultivated support you through this next chapter?
Well, come learn with me. If I, you know, if I put a call out there, look, guess what? I'm writing this book and looking for case studies. You know, continue to comment, continue to share what you're learning, and if you, you know, if you have a guest post or something that you've learned that you want to share through my network, invite you to, you know, come talk to me. In fact, there'll be one tomorrow, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Excellent. Well, I see we're almost at time.
But there's one thing I really
please.
have to say before we go, and it's just, and I would say this at the opening of every peer network I did because we record them. It's, hello, this is Beth Cantor, and today's peer network session has been supported by the Organizational Effectiveness Program and the graciousness of the Packard Foundation. I am truly appreciative, and I just can't say thank you so much for the support that you gave me and kind of like letting me go free and encouraging, and also for everything that you gave to me in the form of learning along the way. It's just, you know, I learned a lot, I shared a lot, but it wouldn't have been possible without the culture of continuous learning that exists here at Packard. And I just really wanted to thank everyone at Packard for that.
Nice. And what's also wonderful, I think, as you know, is the ripples, because we've all so benefited from that because you're so good at sharing, and they've allowed you to share as well, so that it's not just those immediate people that you touch, but, you know, like we know as teachers, those ripples that you sometimes hear about much later. So I just wanted then to close with actually something that Beth wrote when she first joined the Packard Foundation. I looked up the old blog post, and about being a learner is the key to using social media successfully. It's about constant and dynamic learning, and that is learning from doing and doing from learning. Thank you all. Thank you, Beth, and thank you to the Packard Foundation.
Thank you.
And for those of you here, I, of course,